Hey folks, welcome to Testing Hacks. Today, this video is about the API testing using Postman, and we are starting from the very first series, and we'll also learn what is API testing, how to perform API testing, and what are the different response code in API testing. All this we will cover as part of this series. Let's begin. First, let's understand what is API. And before we go into the details, if you have not watched the video about client server model, please do watch that. I will leave the link in the description because it is very base to all this API testing concept. Okay. So API majorly stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay. It is a middle layer between presentation layer and database layer. APIs enable communication and data exchange between presentation layer and database layer. So, as we know that API stands for Application Programming Interface. It acts as an interface between the application and the server, basically. So it is a middle layer between the presentation layer and the database layer. So if you know the client server architecture or three-tier architecture, we have three different layers. One is the presentation layer, which we see on the UI. That is the presentation layer. And the next is the business layer. And next is the database layer. In between this presentation layer and the database layer, there will be another layer which is known as API, which is actually the business logic. It contains the business logic and which helps in the communication between the UI front end and the back end. I mean to say the database. Okay. APIs, yeah, as I mentioned, it enables the data exchange or communication between the presentation layer and the database layer. API testing directly verifies the functionality or logic of the application. Since it contains the business logic, so we can directly verify the logic. For an example, say if from your browser, you will, send some request. Okay, you will type something and then you will hit enter. So now it will have to go to database and fetch the result. Okay, for that there should be some communication, right, in between whatever the process that happens, right? That is called as the API. That process will actually be taken care by the API. Okay, so let's see an example. Say you are at the restaurant, okay, and waiting for the server to come near you, and he is actually an API. How? I'll tell you. So, server comes to you and asks you what you want and takes the menu, correct? So, and he will go back and to the kitchen and he'll place that order. And once the item is ready, he'll again come back to you serving with the dish, whatever you have ordered. So here he is in communication bridge between you and the kitchen. Okay, so that is how the API also works. It is actually a communication bridge between client and the server. So now we saw what is API. Now we are interested in learning API testing, right? So we have to understand what is API testing is then. APIs have become the center of software development, connecting and transferring data and across systems and applications. APIs are the connecting tissue between different systems or layers of an application. We generally hit APIs and verify its response to check the communication, performance, security, functional correctness. And so in API testing, what we will do is we will have a particular URL. We will hit that particular URL called API. We will hit that API and we will check the data or the response, whatever we are getting. Suppose if you are getting the valid response, then well and good. So what is happening here is we are filtering out the presentation layer. We are just concentrating on the middle layer. Okay, so with this we will check the performance. We can put some load on this API, and also we can check how it is performing, how well it is performing, how secured it is, and functional correctness. All this can be verified with the help of API testing, that too using the Postman. Most of the companies or most of the testers use Postman. There are several other tools as well, but we prefer Postman. So then why this API testing is important? What is the need of uh, API testing? So one is the earlier validation, which means that rather than you wait for the UI to be developed and then to check the whole functionality, before that itself we can check this particular API, and we can confirm the correctness, the functionality, major functionality, at least we can confirm by using the API. And easier test maintenance, since it doesn't require any uh, UI, it is easily just maintainable. So rather than hitting from UI while testing, you will perform different scenarios, right? And then you will um, confirm that this particular functionality or this is working fine. But rather than doing that, we can use this particular API, and also we can confirm. So at some of the places UI also will be using the same APIs. Okay, at that place it is time saving. Okay, so that is why it is faster time to resolution. And whenever, suppose, even from the UI front, if you face any errors or issues, right, first the developers will check the API. They will check how it is responding. From that they will start debugging it usually, whenever you report any issues that you face from the UI. Okay, speed and coverage, it is little speeder. We can perform it little speed. Okay, rather than performing many scenarios from UI, it is rather we can directly hit the API and we can check it. So it is speed, and the coverage can be more. In between we have something called as web service. Web service is nothing but it is also an API. Okay, a web service is a set of protocol and standards that allow data exchange between two devices or application. Web service is an application component for communication. It enables the communication between two devices over the network. This is the major difference. It is also an API which actually communicates via the internet. And there is a statement that all web services are APIs, but not all the APIs are web services, which means that there are multiple APIs, say, okay, while performing it, if you use the internet, then it is a web service. If it doesn't use internet, some of the APIs work even without internet, right? So those are something normal APIs. If it communicates over the network, then it is a web service. So that is the reason all web services are APIs, but not all the APIs are web services. And we have majorly two types of APIs. One is SOAP and another one is REST. We will see each of them. And there are multiple other types of APIs are there, but our major concentration would be on only these two. SOAP, which stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. It is a message specification for exchange information between systems and applications. Okay, it is basically a protocol which is a message protocol. It also communicates between the application to the database. But here the thing is, it uses XML format, data format for message being sent and received. The only thing is, it uses XML format, extern, extensible, sorry, extensible markup language. So it is quite complex. If you see here, this is an XML format. It is not easily readable, correct? So that is why it doesn't look so much user friendly. I mean to say, friendly for us to quickly read through. And it will be enclosed in an envelope, okay, like that. Um, and next is representational state transfer protocol, which is a RESTful. It is also known as RESTful, representational state transfer protocol. It is a set of rules that define how application or devices can connect to and communicate with each other. Okay. So the name suggests it is a representational state transfer protocol. There are six different set of protocols or principles that is already defined. If that meets, then it will be an REST API. Okay. REST is simply a widely adopted style of API that we use to communicate with internal and external parties in a consistent and predictable way. And it commonly uses JSON format, JavaScript object notation, okay, format for the data communication. It is simple format. Basically, it consists of key value pair enclosed in an array. Okay, so that is why it is easy to read and it is quite friendly compared to XML format. And we will see what is the difference between SOAP and REST. I hope you have understood what is SOAP and then what is REST, and there is a quite a difference between them, and we will see that. SOAP, which stands for Simple Object Access Protocol, right? It is an XML based message protocol. But whereas REST or RESTful is an architectural pattern. Okay, as I mentioned, there are six principles it follows. It is kind of an architecture. Suppose say if it is stateless, then there are set of principles like stateless and it is cacheable. All these are set of principles that REST is attached with. SOAP can work only with XML format, but whereas the REST permits these types like plain text, HTML, XML, and JSON, etc. All these formats REST, permits us. It uses WSDL for communication, which is Web Service Definition Language. Okay, which is we actually define it in the XML format. But whereas this REST uses the JSON format for the communication. And this SOAP is less preferred due to its complex design. Okay, since XML is not easily readable, so it is less preferred, and also there are certain constraints with SOAP. But whereas the REST is easy to implement. This is highly secure as it has own security. Its own security is defined by the SOAP. But whereas the REST doesn't have its own security, hence it depends on the application defined security. So it is less secure compared to SOAP. Can communicate over HTTP as well as SMTP. Can communicate only over HTTP. Okay. So here the difference is it can along with HTTP method it also um, communicate over the simple mail transfer protocol SMTP, which is used for the mail transfer. Okay, but the performance is not good as REST, the SOAP's performance. But whereas the performance of the REST is much more better than the SOAP. Okay, and it is easily readable format. We are using JSON, right? Yeah. So this is all about what we learned what is API, what is API testing, what is web service, right? And what are the different types of APIs we have in the list, right? Which is SOAP and then REST. In the next part, we will start downloading the Postman tool and we will start working on it. For this video, this is all. Stay tuned. Bye bye.